live. This is so you can catch us on the fly. And yay, we are back. Thursday night webinars are back from the UNstuck and Unstoppable community. So welcome. We look like we've just got back from camp, don't we?
Yep.
Well, I look like I got back from camp. You look quite schmick, actually. I'm quite impressed with the way you're looking.
Thanks.
So tonight's webinar is going for what you want, actually holding you back, which sounds like a complete oxymoron, but like as we know in life, there are many, many paradoxes. So it's really important that we uncover this one and look for where there may be other secret areas that would be holding us back. Just a little word on the retreat. If you attended, well done, guys. What a stunning 4 days we had. It was absolutely incredible. Yep. We had our private call last night and everybody was like still juiced and pumped, and it was fantastic to get lots of feedback to see how they've been going. In less than a week, some incredible things already happening. So don't forget, we've launched the new one, the October one. So if you missed that one, jump onto the October one. Don't miss out on that one, because who knows when the next one will be. I haven't got it planned yet. All right, so let's jump straight back into tonight's webinar. So how could going for what you want actually hold you back and stop you from actually getting it, or even other things in your life? What sort of things do you think you'd be missing out on? Did you have a word to say on that? Do you have what you'd like for us to cover tonight?
I think, probably if we touch on the subject of balance and imbalance and this sort of thing, and how that's probably intertwined as well in relation to how we go for what we want.
Yeah.
Versus
what we love.
Yes.
Because there's a bit of a difference, isn't there? It's not a massive feel initially, but eventually after a while and you start to do some of this work, it gets easier to discern what you want versus what you love. It feels very different. So maybe we'll start with, just one of the basic things that we all learn when we're doing, for example, goal setting or something along those lines in personal development. A lot of the people that I've had over the years, they talk about the wheel of life. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've had that as well. Yeah. So they draw this little thing that looks like a wagon wheel with little spokes on it and that sort of thing. And then you give yourself a score out of 10, the 10 being the rim and the 0 being the hub, of how you go in different areas of your life. So things like career, family, finance, what else is there? Health,
spirituality.
Yeah, intimacy, growth, social, recreation.
Yeah. So
you can have quite a few spokes in your spikes. Don't have spokes, spikes in your wheel. Have quite a number of spokes in your wheel. And those spokes, when you then score yourself, it's supposed to be sort of roundish, and hopefully the bigger, well, according to these guys, the bigger the better. But often, almost invariably, our wheels look a little bit wonky. So, we might be really big on career at the moment. It might be like we're smacking at an 8 or a 9. And then you end up at a level where your family might have been a bit neglected and you only score yourself like a 2 or a 3. And so all of a sudden, if you had to use that as an actual wheel, it'd be like, dun, 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 doof, dun, 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 doof. It doesn't really work very well. So you'd be familiar with that. So, so that basically means that we look at those wheels of life and we look for these imbalances, and then quite often we beat ourselves up because I really should have spent more time with the family. I've been focusing on, my career at the moment. But look, life is a little bit like there are leaps and bounds. There's going to be times when the family is the priority and, they take front and center. And there's other times when the career has to take front and center, and, maybe you're studying. So maybe the mental spoke becomes, bigger at that point in time. But as we know, everything passes. So we get to a point where those peaks eventually peter out, whether because they just finished their cycle or because we change and it's time for something to shift, or there's even something comes up. Like, say, for example, if you're way out of balance with your health, then and you put that off and put it off and put it off, and then something comes up and all of a sudden you have this pivotal moment where you can't ignore it any longer, and if you do, it's only going to be to your detriment and the detriment of your family. So it's important that we refocus there. So often those things are brought back into our attention to bring us back into balance, and that seems to be how the universe works on most things, isn't it? Yeah,
and so sometimes those things that seem like we're taking a big hit they'll always be for us rather than to us, and meaning that they're designed, as things come up in our life, they're usually designed to highlight something that we may be missing.
Absolutely,
for our growth.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember with the wheel of life, we might be working at balancing our wheel out as much as we can, given what circumstances we're in, but also remember that you always attract people around you that will also help you to balance that out as well. So sometimes there's a time where, as I said before, like you're really focusing on study and maybe you've got exams coming up. There's members of my family doing that at the moment. So exams are really, really busy. And so the family thing has to take a little bit of a back seat for a little while, in which case someone comes and picks that up for you. It's not like it disappears, or you bring someone in to help you with that process. So it's funny how that we beat ourselves up for not keeping the wheel balanced all the way around, but there's always someone that comes into our circle and helps us to fill where those deficits are. And I think that's a really important thing that we've been missing of late, is we forget about the fact that we are a community and we are a tribe-based being. Like we actually need a tribe. They talk about it takes a tribe to raise a child. And another friend of mine, when his wife died, he said it takes a tribe to actually help go through the death process. So it's something that not just in those critical times of life, all the time as tribal beings, we need to look after each other. And unfortunately, we've created more and more and more separation. And that sort of means that it's very hard for us to get what we want, because we don't believe we deserve to have that attention on that one or two things. And yeah, you need your tribe. And then that means that we're putting off those sorts of things. So that's one way that when we're going for what we want, we actually end up holding ourselves back, because we don't really feel that we deserve it, and we don't deserve the support of the people around us. But that's what they're there for, and we're denying them the gift of giving, aren't we? Yep. In that regard as well. So yeah, the tribe is vitally important with that side of things. So we want to talk tonight really briefly about what it feels like to have a want versus a love. So did you want to branch into that a little bit?
Yeah, probably. Some of those things, when you're going for something you want versus going for something you love, usually what's happening is the orientation of that is from the head, or it's from the ego, and it feels like there's a lot of pushing and shoving oftentimes, and there's struggle associated with it, almost like you're just pushing it uphill all the time. And if and when you achieve an outcome, often that outcome's unsustainable. It requires way too much imbalance in your life to be able to keep it afloat. So it'll hang around, but then all of a sudden something will come along and wipe it out. You know? And so that's just a few of those things that could probably, give you a bit of a heads up when you might be coming from that orientation and going for what you want. Whereas when you're going for what you love, it's a subtle distinction, but it's a really powerful difference in the outcome. So the outcome is more of a sustainable outcome. It's an outcome that is energizing for you and for those people around you as well. So rather than being depleting, and there's a feeling of flow, a feeling of grace and ease as you kind of move toward that or those things that you love as well.
And like a synchronicity, when you start bumping into people that like help you get on the way, or give you a suggestion or whatever. And and it's as you go for the things that you love, you're sort of connecting to your heart, and you're actually allowing your heart to express itself through you into being. So the heart only wants to help, so it'll continue to bring you more energy, inspired energy, and give you feedback on actions that you might need to take as the next step toward achieving that outcome. Absolutely.
And so, ideas, maybe when you're asleep and you wake up the next morning, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, well, that was a really good idea. Write it down. I'm terrible at that. I wake up in the morning, that was a great idea. And then by lunchtime, I've forgotten what it was.
It's like I'll never forget that. That was awesome.
So you've got to write it down.
It's gone.
Yeah, and the other thing I find is that when I'm going for something I want, you know, and I come to that conclusion because somebody else told me I should want it, or everybody else is going for that, or I've got FOMO, or, you know, just it's not really come from the heart. I've got it from somewhere else, and I'm going for that one, or I should have it because, you know, you do such and such, so you should be doing what everyone else does. When I'm going for those ones, when I get a challenge, it's a real challenge. Like, I really struggle to get over it. And the type of energy that I bring to it is terrible as well. Like today I had to do something, and it was I have to do something because it was something I had to do for someone else. It's accounting. Everyone loves accounting, don't they? Yeah. Anyway, so it was sort of along those lines. And when I thought about it straight away, I just went, oh, I'm so tired. So of course my old backseat driver, good old Wilma, jumped on my back, made me feel really heavy. The eyelids, she was like trying to shut my eyelids, and I'm falling asleep. I've got to do the accounting and and whereas later on I had another project to work on, which is to do with some epi-paleo stuff, which is really cool, and that juices me. So all of a sudden Wilma disappeared. She must have gone off to sunbake or something because it was a lovely sunny day, and next thing I've got all the energy in the world, and things are just unfolding. Like, ideas were coming out, and the whole structure just came together in a matter of 15 minutes. And it's like, oh, great, that's awesome. So now I've got the structure to work with. But that doesn't mean you're not necessarily going to have challenges when you go on a heart-centered mission. What it does mean, though, is that when you are given a challenge in that way, more than likely it's going to be a growthful challenge, don't you think? Like, it's going to help you to evolve as a human.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it is, you know, we're not suggesting that we're going for a path that doesn't require that you stretch and that you expand, because life's about expanding. It's about, you know, raising consciousness and awareness. So that's the beauty of a true heart-centered undertaking, is that it's going to provide you with that, and you wouldn't want it any other way.
No, absolutely. So after a while, you start to feel those differences. You start to really notice the difference between I'm going for a want that's come from my head versus going for a love that's come from my heart. But it's important that we actually take the time and just sort of sit in it for a moment and really, until we're practiced at tapping into that feeling, just sit in it and feel it. Try it on for a while and just see, is this coming from my head, or is it actually coming from my heart? What sort of feelings am I getting around it? And there are a couple of feelings that are shared by the two, by the way. So things like, you can get excited about something that you want just as you can about following something that came from your heart. You can be scared about something that came from your heart just as much as you can about something that you decided from your head that you want. So, you know, it can be really tricky. It's a discernment, but once you start to really tap into that, that's where the power is, that's where the juice is, and you actually start to really find things unfolding in front of you rather than you trying to push it. There's a very big difference in how things occur once we decide that we're going for something from the heart as opposed to from the head.
That's right. And I suppose what we're talking about here is actually nothing new to your innate inner self. You already know this, but this is about remembering that and coming back to that state of wholeness rather than that sort of separated, fragmented state of the ego. And because the ego and the often when we're going for what we want, or we're following that sort of track coming from the head, we've been doing it for years, and you know, egoic thinking, and I'm not talking about sort of egoic as in look at me, I'm just it's more about, you know, when the ego was formed at a very young age, and it had a very valid reason for doing it, for, you know, creating separation and creating that vehicle really that we're able to experience life through. But it's also something that we are supposed to kind of outgrow and come back to the heart and live life then, you know, via the heart. So it's more of a returning back to your true essence.
It's quite interesting that, because obviously that egoic thinking came about for one, a need of survival, and two, to know how the world is so that we can survive in it as we get older. And most cultures that have you know, sort of ceremony around going from adolescence to adulthood, there's this real initiation thing, and that's when they actually learn learn, they've become their most egoic, and they undergo all this training to basically then bring them back into themselves, into their wholeness, and to let go of the ego, knowing that it's there, they can access it any time that they want. It was important for them as they were growing up, but they actually let it go. And we've really lost all those rites of passage, especially in the Western culture. We don't have anything like that. So when our teenagers just stumble through adolescence, as we all did, we pop out the other end, and all of a sudden we're an adult, and we're, adulting, we've got bills and we've got responsibilities and all this sort of stuff. But we haven't really been taught that the ego is there to serve us and protect us in a certain way, but it actually has a certain role in our adulthood. It's not running the show. And if you've looked at the webinars before we've done on the backseat driver, that's a big one that we talk about there, about how we sort of start to invest our ego to help us rather than to shoot us in the foot at the worst possible moment. So, and that is just as true here when we're talking, working out what we would love versus what we want. And the other thing is, when we're going for what we want, usually when we see what we want, we are often also unconsciously see what we don't have. It's sort of like, I want to have a holiday in Europe. I don't have a holiday in Europe. I want a holiday in Europe. I don't have the money for a holiday in Europe. I want a holiday in Europe. You're never going to get to Europe, so there's this thing going on. So even though we keep setting our affirmations and we look at our vision board and we've got all this stuff going on, the other end of the equation is there blatantly punching us in the other side of the head to say, you don't have it, you're not going to get it. And we have this big gap that causes suffering. And it's almost like, well, you're not working hard enough. You haven't got a plan in place. You're not saving enough money. You need to get a second job or a third job or a fourth job just to get yourself there, all those sorts of things. And it's push, 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 push. Whereas when it comes to what you'd love, then we look at what you'd want, holiday in Europe, and then we go, okay, well, we're currently here. We're nowhere near going to Europe at this point in time, and that's okay. So we consciously take out that end of the stick, and we don't beat ourselves up over that. And then just by keep holding the vision, one day I'm having a holiday in Europe, then things start to unfold. That's when we're open to what's happening. Now, if it's not true to your heart really doesn't want to go to Europe, it doesn't like the European people, it doesn't really like eating Italian pizza or things like that, or a croissant in France. That's my thing. I want to go to France.
Such a judgmental heart.
It wasn't. Well, maybe it's not your heart, but you know what I mean? If it's not true for you, if it's not really part of who you are and what you love to do, you might hate travel, for example. Maybe the thought of getting on a plane is like the most terrifying thing you could think of. If that at this point in time is not true for you, then things won't unfold, and then it's time to examine that and make sure that we're actually working towards something that's different. And there's nothing wrong with never leaving the country if you don't want to. So it's just, for some people's values that would be hell. Other people's values, that's fantastic. I just want to sit in my house and do my thing, or travel around this country. I don't want to get on an airplane or whatever. So it's got to be true for you. Once you've locked that in, you know what you're going for, and you just acknowledge where you are and know where you're going and just let it unfold for you. It's a very different feeling. It's amazing. And if you're super keen, you can journal and you can actually start to document where you can see little tiny signs of it starting to come together. And that works on a neurological level, because it gets your reticular activating system looking for the things that are coming your way or are available to you that you maybe not have been able to see before. It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And when if you're going about it from the head sort of side of things, then often you can be focused on things that are of interest to other people, or what people think you should be doing, or what society's telling you should be doing, and these sorts of things. And it sounds, when you say it, like, oh, well, I don't do that. But it's kind of covert, isn't it?
Yeah,
often,
very much.
And you find yourself making choices, even sometimes not aware that you're making choices, but they're based on other people's interests, other people's thoughts and feelings.
Or the marketing company's thoughts and ideas planting in your head. And that's been going on since before we were all born, that's for sure. So I was trying to think, I was looking at something the other day and scrolling on my Facebook, looking for good articles to pop up. And then something popped up and I found myself diving into the ad to look at it. And then I looked at it and went, it's not even relevant for me. It's not something that even appeals to me. But I dove into the ad You know, that's crazy. It's just like got sucked in by some clever marketing, some clever wording, some clever video or something or other. But yeah, it's just something along those lines. So you've got to be really clear. Is this something that I really want or would really love? And is it going to serve me? And if it's not going to serve me, is it going to serve the higher good? What are we going for? What's my heart after in this scenario? So probably a little less about, you know, stressing about the wheel of life and getting everything balanced out, and just knowing that it's being taken care of regardless. There's people that are helping you to fill the gaps. It's okay. Doesn't matter if your wheel's a little wonky, but to really start to tap into what your heart's trying to tell you. And once you know what that is, just hold the vision and just be curious about how things can unfold for you. It's a fascinating process. It takes a bit of faith and trust, but
it is, and it does. And it's something that we dove very deep into throughout the retreat last week as well. And it's not just fascinating, but it's also extremely effective as well. So there's a lot of power, there's a lot of magic there that we're just completely unaware of. We uncovered how it is that we are creating all the time. So it's not a case of, you know, have I got to create all the time, or when can I kind of take a break from creating? It's like, well, actually, that's our natural state. We're creating. The question is whether or not we're creating what we love, and or whether or not we're creating consciously. So what we really get into at the retreat is showing you how you can come back to your heart and how you can start to become a conscious creator, and therefore creating, discerning the difference between what you want and what you'd actually love, and really starting to bring your attention, your focus, and therefore your power, and placing it square on what you love. And what starts to happen, and it doesn't take that long, is your life starts to reflect back to you a life of fullness and richness and a real sense of purpose, sort of thing, and happiness. So these are really deep down desires that we have, and not often are we expressing them, though, if we're just asleep and on autopilot, sort of thing, which it becomes, most of the time we are.
Get up, go to work, come home, feed the kids, kick the dog, go to bed. I don't kick my dog, by the way. You've never seen me kick the dog. But it's this cycle, and we just go, that's the way it is. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's just that we're recreating the same thing over and over and over again. So it's our choice to create what we want, we can do it consciously, or we can just do it unconsciously, day in, day out, you know, same drama, it's different people probably, but same drama day in, day out. So we make sure that we are consciously creating, and as you said, it doesn't take very long. Even some of the people, we've been out of our retreat for less than a week, the one we just read, and you can already see the evidence starting to happen with some of the people in some of the areas of their life that they said, no, I'm really stuck in these areas, I really want to change this. And we can already see the beginnings, the little baby evidences of it starting to really turn over and come together, because they are now following their heart. They know what they love. They've got rid of the fear and the blockages that were around that, and now we're moving forward with a whole new perspective, which is brilliant. I love it. It's fantastic to see.
It's very exciting.
Yeah,
stuff.
I think that's pretty much it for tonight. So, you know, if you've got any questions, put them in the comments, or if you're watching the recording, you can do that too in the comments there, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And what was I going to say? Next week, we'll have a new topic up. I promise I'll do it early so we can build some suspense for you. So we'll get our topic up for next week ASAP, and we shall see you same bat time, same bat channel on Unstuck and Unstoppable Community or Zoom. Have a good one. See you guys.
Night, guys.